Weekend Warriors. The Weekendology Podcast returns with yet another episode for your weekend entertainment. We're the only podcast with the hottest takes, the best talking points, and the stories to fuel your weekend conversations. So sit back, get comfortable, make yourself a drink, do whatever you do to, relax on the weekend, because we are here. Will Deichley alongside my co-host Aaron Berg. Aaron, what's up today?
What up?
We're back in MZ Studios in Dallas, Texas, so shout out to them. Thanks for hosting us again. Aaron, we've reached our 7th episode now. I want to thank everybody who's kind of listened in at this point, supported us on this our little venture. We want to hear from you, our listeners, so give us a like, a follow, put your comments in the description below. Really helps out. Appreciate everybody who's kind of joined us along.
Yeah, and tell us what you want to hear for the future. We want to hear from you and cater the episodes to you guys. So if there's anything you want to see change or something that is changing that you want us to talk about, let us know and we can either talk about it off the top of our heads or do some research and get it in there. So
everything's just kind of freewheeling it. So it's going to be a fun episode today. And we're kind of venturing back into the realm of the sports world, but kind of unlike previous episodes where we talked about professional sports, we're stepping more into the realm of minor league sports. And we asked the question, are minor league sports teams and players, are they treated poorly, and why are they treated that way? And we have a good guest alongside with us to kind of delve into the world of the minor league as well. He was a standout hockey player in Sweden, Germany, and the U.S. He went on to be the star in the NCAA, AHL, Germany's DEL, and ECHL leagues. There, he was a 2-time Kelly Cup champion and the 2014-15 playoffs MVP. Let's welcome Gregor Hansen. Gregor, how's it going?
Doing great, thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron mentioned that he was getting a superstar hockey player on the podcast, and I freaked out and was like, "Oh my God, who did you get?" And he gave me the background. I was like, "Yeah, this guy's pretty legit." So
you must have been pretty disappointed after that, but no, this is great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to join in, and hopefully I can give some good insight today. So.
Yeah. Well, no problem. Happy to have you. So we're delving into minor league, and it's not something that's talked about quite as much as the pros, obviously. But I was doing a little bit of research, and I read a couple articles about kind of the current state of what minor league has, and it's more kind of seen as a super casual sport. My experience with minor league is going to a couple minor league hockey games. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, or going to a couple minor league baseball games, and it's just more of like a entertainment spectacle sport, I guess, with a lot of crazy promotions, a lot of different types of theme nights. I remember
SpongeBob jerseys.
A lot of interesting type of entertainment options.
Let's embarrass the players and act like they're not truly professionals and put them in SpongeBob jerseys.
I remember George Costanza nights. There's like Friends night. There's all these different types of promotion nights that minor league sports teams do. And it's fun. Don't get me wrong. As a player or as a fan, it's enjoyable to go to. The ticket prices are really low, which is awesome. It's a great alternative if you can't make it to one of the pro leagues. But the issue doesn't really lie in kind of the entertainment aspect of it. It kind of lies more into the treatment of the players or the kind of the pressure that some of the players feel within playing it and trying to make it to the pros as well. So, Gregor, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of with your background and how you got into playing minor league hockey.
Yeah, so I grew up in Sweden, played there growing up. Had to make a decision to either join the OHL in Canada or go the college route. And I wanted an education, so I ended up playing college hockey at Northern Michigan for 4 years. Had a chance to go pro after 3 years, but ended up staying. And it was great. I think, it set you up to play pro. And once that was done and got my degree, I was able to go. I actually spent my first year in the Swedish league, and then moved back to the U.S. to play in the ECHL and in the AHL and some of these leagues. So, the minor leagues, you hear a lot of bad things about them, and you hear a lot of crazy stories, and a lot of it is true. There's a lot of craziness going on, but overall, you're given a pretty good opportunity to make your mark and move your way up. And of course, there's a lot of politics with draft picks and what type of contract somebody's on. Is he on an NHL contract? This and that. So yeah, I ended up spending about how many years, probably 6-7 years in the minors, and yeah, I loved it, and I'd do it again.
So Gregor, growing up in Sweden, I mean, you said you wanted to get an education. That's how you ended up at Northern Michigan, but was the dream always, okay, I'm going to get an education, but I'm playing hockey and that's what I'm going to do for my career? Or was it more, I want to play hockey as long as I can and ride this out until I can't do it anymore and then have the education ready to go. So when I get out of the career, I have a backup plan. What was that thinking like as you went along growing up?
Back then, I think if you're playing at a high level in Sweden, which I was, I think the goal was definitely NHL. There was nothing else. Of course, we figured out, I didn't know much about college at all, but I was told that there was a really great way to get to the NHL if you did well enough. And my parents were really, really high on the education part. So, while I moved over for college and go to school, it was basically just the route I took to make it to the NHL or try to make it to the NHL. And all the focus was on that. And of course, school was kind of just a bonus.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's such a huge focal point over there. Was there ever a time when you thought, there was another sport you could play besides hockey, or was hockey your main one that you focused on?
No, actually, I was probably equally or maybe even better in soccer. I think I'm more of a soccer body in general. I'm only like 5'10" and 180. So
you're speaking my language, Gregor. I'm a huge soccer fan, so I love it.
Yeah, no, huge fan and loved it, but. It just in Sweden, there's no high school sports, so you actually play on club teams. And once you get competitive around, the 13 years old or 14 years old, which sounds kind of crazy, but that by then you got to pick a sport. You can't keep playing both at a competitive level. So I thought hockey was more fun with the physical aspect of it, and I'm happy I made the choice. And soccer was always there for me, and I loved it. And I always wondered how that would have turned out, but I had to make a decision pretty early, 13, 14, which sport to pursue. So, yeah.
So, and you mentioned, I didn't know you had that opportunity to play in the OHL. Thinking about, what could have happened, I know that's kind of a weird question and something you don't want to think about too long, but if you would have picked that route, I mean, because you've seen guys, I think more recently, they choose that route and it kind of springboards them into the NHL more so than college hockey. Recently, how do you think your route would have been? Would it have been similar? I mean, would you have to fight a little harder, or what? I guess how would that change things now?
No, I think you're completely right. It's a better route to the NHL, no doubt. First of all, you're playing in front of, I think, more scouts, and you're in Canada, which obviously is the hockey mecca. And then once you're done in OHL, you're anywhere between 18 and 20. So you're going pro at a much, much earlier age than in college, which for myself, for an example, I played for 4 years and became pro when I was 23, and some people do it even later. So, going back, just thinking back to my pro career, like there's a huge age discrimination, or let's just say there's a lot of emphasis on age in hockey. Like once you hit 25, 26, you're kind of past that prospect age. So I know for a fact, I mean, we had a better chance of maybe making it higher if I got out, started playing pro when I was 18 to 20 instead of 23, 24. But on the other hand, I got my education, and I'm very happy now as I'm done with hockey, as I have a career after hockey, and there's a balancing act there. It goes both ways, but no doubt I think the OHL and the QMJHL and the WHL is a better pro route.
Yeah, it's so funny. I actually tried in hockey when I played in high school because I was like 17. I'm like, I got to get better at this. I'm like, man, what am I doing? Like, what am I going to do? Play club hockey? Like, thanks, Connor McDavid. I feel like he's the one who ruined it for all of us. He's 20-year-old, just superstar. You're like, yep, I'm done. Like,
no kidding. Yeah, no. With all these young guys coming into the league now, it's it helps a lot because you can have a lot of young guys, and then they're obviously cheaper, and then you can pay your older veterans more. So the more younger guys you can have on a team, all based off of how the contracts are structured with age, the better. So it makes sense.
So you played in Sweden for a little while, and then you made the decision to obviously come over to the ECHL. What was that transition like? And playing outside of Sweden, and what was it like playing for a minor league hockey team?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think the physical aspect of the game was a huge difference. First of all, there's not as much physical play in Europe at all. I think everybody knows that. And then, of course, the rink is bigger as well, so you don't get hit as much and stuff like that. So there was a big change in that. But like I said, I had played college for 4 years, and I was only playing in Sweden for 1 year. So it wasn't that big of an adjustment going back to the small rinks. I actually really preferred it because I felt like there was more lucky bounces. There was a little more stuff happening. It just fit me better. So no kidding. The first few games, the physical aspect of the game was definitely something like an eye opener. You in Sweden, you barely got hit, and suddenly there's 6'4", 225-pound defenseman out there trying to take your head off. So
I always like to compare and contrast the athletes from different types of countries and different sports, because I feel like America has such a physical aspect in any sport. Like, it's so much quicker, it's so much more technical, there's so much more emphasis placed on it. So a lot of foreign players who come over here, they're like, "Wait, it's night and day, pretty much."
That was our first episode. The first episode of the podcast was about the NBA, and it's the same type of deal. And it reminded me so much of that.
Yeah,
because now you're seeing the European style kind of come over, and it's getting more technical in the States. Finally, I mean, and Europe's been doing this for years and years and years with every sport.
So Gregor, a lot of the times, when you play in the minor leagues, that's obviously your goal is to get to the pros, but it's very difficult to do that. I mean, how realistic is it really to be kind of a career minor leaguer, so to speak? Make your living in playing in the minor league just there.
Well, I think in the ECHL you definitely can get by. You're not going to make any money, and you obviously, if you do well enough, you have a chance to get loaned to the AHL and then maybe play your way into a contract for the next year, which is usually what happened to me. But yeah, in the AHL, I think, financially, I think you can have a good career, and if you do well there, you can be an AHL career guy and get paid pretty well. I think in the ECHL, it's more of a maybe 3-4 years, and then if you don't move up to the AHL, you're probably better off looking at going to Europe or maybe starting your civil career at that point.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally true for minor leagues just as a whole. I was in the front office when I was on the Ellen Americans with Gregor. I was a ticket sales guy. Gregor was playing on the ice there, but it's the same type of deal where, it's kind of like, hey, this is step one in a way, and if you can't cut it here, then you might have to think about something else.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like, there's a lot of more, like, obviously problems that you face when you're a minor league player, or even working in minor league. It's not necessarily the glitz and the glamour of that pros type of sport.
Well, and they don't have any money to pay you.
Exactly.
It's like, hey, do you love this or not? Because if you don't, and you're doing it for the money, go do something else. And but in the front office aspect of it, you can't. Will, at the Blues, if you go to the major leagues, you make that. I wouldn't even call it a jump. It's kind of just lateral movement there. It's
a
the same deal.
Movement, yeah.
Right, yeah. But I don't know, because I went from the NHL to the ECHL in the front office, and it pretty much was the same thing day to day. It was just more of a test of, okay, do you really still want to keep doing this for little pay and not... People think, and Gregor, you can probably attest to this, people will come up to you, in the minor leagues, and I'm sure especially as a player, they'll come up to you and they think you make a lot of money. They think you're this big celebrity. And like in Allen, I'm sure you can talk about, people treat you like a celebrity.
100%. No, it's completely true. They don't know what we make, and they think that we're obviously, if you look at the grand scheme of things, we're pretty good at what we're doing. If you look at the percentage of people that make it to that level. So it's definitely people have kind of the wrong idea about how you live your life and all that. And I think for me, I stayed in it a little longer because my wife was going to law school in the U.S. and it just wasn't a good idea for me to move to Europe and try to do the long distance thing. So I lived it a little longer, and of course I would spend half the year in the AHL and half in the ECHL, but if you're playing 3-4 years only in the ECHL, you're looking at some tough years, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's
the bus, right? Big red.
Oh my God. I mean, I think it's getting better with that stuff. I can't speak for every team, but we had some bus rides that were 15, 20 hours, even when we were in the finals. Actually, I got a funny story. We were playing South Carolina Stingrays in the final, and it was game 6 in their rink, or 5 or something like that. And we won it, and we had actually bused there to South Carolina. So we got on the bus to go home and play game 7, I believe, in Allen. And it was a 16-hour ride, and South Carolina Stingrays, they got to borrow Washington Capitals' private jet and flew there. God. So they probably beat us by a day and a half. Just stuff like that. Every organization differs, but there's definitely some grinding.
Yeah, for those that don't know, the bus ride at the Allen Americans, they called it Big Red. It was from like the early 90s, had 2 million miles on it. Like, that's not an exaggeration.
2 million miles?
Insane.
Did it fly to the moon and back or something?
It was nuts.
What?
It was.
This
you'd be shocked, man. They had to push it at times.
Yeah, there was times, but
oh, wow.
I'm surprised it even held up like it did. I think there was only maybe a couple times where it broke down, and I rode that thing for 3 years on and off. So there was, with 2 million miles on it and the shape of it, you would have thought it'd break down or just blow up on you one day.
Kudos to you for getting through that. And I think that's a
character building. Yep.
Yeah. That's a big problem though, especially with a lot of these minor league teams and kind of the lack of perks thereof within these. Like it's very low pay with playing in the minor leagues. You have to deal with some really heavy and difficult travel types of things, which puts a toll on you, especially if you have a family. What were some other challenges you might have faced while playing in the minors, Gregor?
Well, there's certain places. I mean, you'd come back from a road trip and there'd be because the team pays for your living. So sometimes you'd come back and there'd be an eviction notice on your door.
What?
They hadn't paid their rent or whatever,
God.
and it never actually turned into an eviction. But you know how it goes. They put a few warnings out.
Mortifying to just come back. Like, there's an eviction notice on my door. Great.
and this happened. I mean, at least 2-3 times during my career. And the first few times you're freaking out because I've never been in a situation like that, and right. I just don't know the procedure or what's about to happen.
Welcome to pro hockey.
Yeah, exactly. So but around the 3rd, 4th time, you're just like, never mind. It's fine. They'll pay it in a few weeks, and we'll be all right. So things like that, and then what else do we have? Just the fan stuff is really fun, but it's also you're very accessible because you're obviously not in the NHL and you don't have protection, and so they kind of put you out there a lot. And you might be sitting having dinner somewhere, and fans will just come out and sit down with you, and maybe you're with your wife trying to have a good time, and they'll just sit down and interrupt. And I just don't see that stuff happening at the NHL level. Obviously, I didn't play there, so I don't know, but I think there's a little more respect. Like when I played in Germany in the top league there, fans were a lot. They gave you a lot more distance. So I think that's completely a minor league thing where fans feel like they can. They feel like they're your best buddy and you can just hang out.
Yeah. What was the most eye-opening thing about the minor leagues? When you first got in, you're out of college and you're like, all right, I'm ready to do this. I'm really going for the dream and still, getting to the NHL one day. What was that eye-opening thing of, okay, no, I got to really, push through this, and what was the biggest struggle there?
Yeah, well, you realize really quick that it's the ECHL. It's really good quality of hockey. If you look at the individual players, there's a ton of players that I played with in the ECHL that are as good as my friends that play in the NHL. So you realize that there's a really, really small margin of the NHL and then AHL and ECHL who's who and who's better and whatnot. And that's the thing that stood out most in the beginning, the quality of play. Then, of course, people might not be playing for their team. They might not try that hard to win. They're just playing for themselves, which is another thing that really stood out after playing in college was people are basically just playing for themselves. So it's not really a team sport per se because people want to move up. People want to get, further their career. And when you're playing 80 games in the minors and like you guys mentioned earlier, sometimes you're wearing freaking Ronald McDonald jerseys and there's 500 people in the stands. I mean, it becomes a lot more individual than, for example, college where you play 30 games and you're representing your school and and you don't even think about anything else in your team. So things like that. But yeah, the quality stood out. And then of course the bus rides, negative, and kind of how people are to themselves a little bit. They don't really play for the team, which is unfortunate, but it's also understandable.
Well, 'cause, I mean, you could be gone tomorrow. That's a thing that when I started working in the minors, that I was shocked at. I was amazed fans knew the players, because guys would be in. And it's not as bad as, say, baseball. I mean, those guys are out in 3 days. But hockey still, I mean, guys get traded. And it was so funny, too. I would have fans come up to me and they're like, why did they trade this guy? I'm like, it's the minors. Like this, that's the point. Or they're trying to move up, or go
and that's another thing in the ECHL. That's actually something that really stood out. I didn't know this, but the contracts are week to week. So you can get cut at any time, and you're basically out of there.
That's really stressful.
It's a stressful life, especially if you're on the bubble or something like that, and you're a rookie and you don't really, because a lot of these teams are all obviously affiliated with the NHL teams. So sometimes, a lot of the times the affiliated players on NHL contracts and AHL contracts are going to play ahead of you. So I've seen some guys that were standout college players, but they went in undrafted to the ECHL, and they just never got a chance and had to hang him up right away, which is really sad. So
what was that pressure like? So actually going back to an old episode we did, I think our second one, we talked about mental health in sports and just the pressure of constantly being able to perform and doing it night in, night out, and working so hard to get to your goal. I mean, spending your life trying to get there. What was that like, especially at that level, but just throughout all the levels that you played, of I need to go in, I need to perform, I need to have my best game. And if I don't, I could be done with this whole career tomorrow.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of pressure, and it's not for everybody. I think, especially for me, when I would get called up to the AHL, I knew the pressure was on right away. And you can have one game and you play bad, and you're out of there. So it was definitely a challenge. It's something that you kind of learn how to deal with. And to be honest, I learned over my years that some of the call-ups to the AHL, you're just there. Well, most of them, to be honest, you're just there to fill a spot because of an injury. It doesn't even matter how well you do or whatever. Like one year, I got called up to San Diego Gulls, and I think I had a goal and assist in my first game, and was first star of the game. And then I got sent back to the ECHL maybe a week later. So it doesn't really matter that much. You got to be a little bit lucky to get called up and then stick, and then end up playing there for a couple more years or whatever. So
I can't imagine the kind of stress that kind of brings out. It's a lot of times these problems are overlooked by a lot of the players too, because they're there, they're trying to make it to the pros, or they're there to prove themselves. But to be on a week-to-week contract, to be sometimes paying for their own travel expenses or pushing the bus, so to speak, to get to the games.
Yeah, literally.
I mean, they kind of ignore it though, because it's like it's chasing the dream. Do you think is chasing the dream for that pro status worth it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're playing a sport which I can only speak for myself, but that was the sport that if there's one thing I could do on earth, it would be to play hockey. It was the most fun I could have, and you're giving yourself a chance to to succeed and maybe make a career out of it at whatever level you call a career. And I think it's something that you look back and you're happy you did it, no matter if it maybe set you back for your second career, with getting an education or getting the job you wanted or all that stuff. But, for me, I definitely, even if I would have just played in the ECHL my whole career, I'm still very happy I did it, because it was a lot of fun, no matter what, no matter how long the bus rides are and all the stuff that goes into it and how bad you get treated. You're still out there having a lot of fun with 25 guys, and you're loving every moment of it when you're out on the ice. So
no, that's good too, because especially with so many kind of distracting issues, and like you said, a lot of the players just play for themselves. I can't imagine what that would be like as a player. Like you come to like, okay, I'm a very team oriented player, and then a lot of times it's just, okay, I'm here to just make it, and I don't really care about anybody else, or a lot of distraction with the theme nights and the crowd, or I don't know what it's like in hockey, but in baseball I'd go and there'd be 6 different types of theme nights going on
the
at
same
the
exact
same time.
It's literally the same thing. It's probably more. It's like 10.
The players are
trying to get people in the building.
Yeah, the players are getting paid
Exactly.
like $4 an hour, and they're like, okay, I thought people came here to play, watch us, but instead they came here for Fred Bird or for the St. Louis Cardinals mascot or something to come at a different team.
Because it's not scouts, NHL scouts that are coming for SpongeBob night. It's a bunch of crazy 10-year-olds or whatever. So
Gregor, do you remember playing against a guy named Nathan Lutz on the Tulsa Oilers?
Yeah.
It was crazy. He was like in his late 30s, and he was still
playing in the minors.
I don't know if he's still playing. But
nah, he's done now.
He's done now. Okay. I was gonna say he's got to be like 40 now, but
I think
a couple years ago he was still playing.
Yeah, I think he hit 40 in the ECHL, and he was still playing well. I mean, he was like as hard to play against as you can find. So he was definitely, that's you had a lot of respect, and you were definitely scared of him. But he did well. He was doing it at a high age. I'd have to tell him that.
Well, like you said, I mean, that's what you wanted to do. That is the best job you can envision, and that's the dream. I mean, I think that's the dream for any person that hey, we can play the sport we love or just do whatever we love. But I think playing a sport, especially, and just competing in general, I mean, it's so much fun, and it's what you do as a kid to prolong that. I mean, that's amazing. So I think it's tough when people say, oh, well, it's just the minors or that sort of thing, because I just think it's a cool career. I mean, and despite making, quote unquote, making nothing or dealing with, the stuff you had to deal with, the bus trips or the maybe, certain teams' management issues or whatever, I think that's so important. I love that you brought that up, is that you got to remember why you're doing it, and remember that you're playing a game and you're doing what you love. And there's so many people that don't get to do that or reach a point where, hey, they have to hang it up. Whereas, I mean, Gregor, you could still play today. I mean, that's the thing. So it's kudos to you for keeping that.
I would kill to be in that position. And I mean, obviously you got to sacrifice a lot to make it to the pros or some sort of elite status. But I mean, I realized I couldn't make it to the next level at 17 years old. Like there was no chance for me, but
So for minor leaguers, I mean, this podcast, like we say, it's about change, and it's about either
breaking the status quo.
Break the status quo. So changing something we want to change or something that is changing in the world. For this episode, I mean, we're looking at essentially treating minor leaguers better. I mean, how would you pick? I mean, what were some things that you'd start with to make minor league hockey or just any minor league sport better in any way?
Well, I think for hockey, especially, I do know baseball, it could have changed, but at least when I played, they didn't even have a union. So at least the hockey they have the PHPA, which can handle some of the stuff that you run into with these teams if there's a problem with your apartment or if you're not getting paid and stuff like that. So
I received a lot of calls from them at the Americans.
Oh boy,
I'm sure you did.
The joys of the front office.
How did that conversation?
It was Andrea, and then it was the Players Association.
Yeah, trust me, they're probably still happy that I retired. They're happy that I retired, so they don't have to hear from my wife anymore. But no, I think in hockey, at least you have the union there, which is good. I think to be honest, one of the things that could change is definitely the contract structure. Like, maybe don't have guys sign a week-to-week contract and just cut them and throw them out on the streets. I think that's a little much. It's already a really big commitment to going and playing minor sports after college or juniors or whatever you played. And I think maybe the contract structure could be a little bit better. I think other than that, I think they do a good job. They always have nice arenas. They take care of your housing for the most part, and I don't have that much bad things to say about minor leagues. They're kind of cleaning up the game too. It's not as rough as it used to be either. When I started, there used to be at least 3-4 fighters on every team, and they would just duke it out. So
the enforcers are dead now, I think.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because now I'm a fan of the game and watch TV, and I loved watching that stuff. When I played, I didn't really like it, but now watching hockey, I want them to fight. So it's you
ever find yourself like watching the team and be like, oh, they should have done this, or that guy should have done that, or I could have done that a little bit better.
Yeah, no, of course you do, and I can obviously tell some of the structures and formations and some of the, the game plans from the different NHL teams that they have. Some of them have them all the way through their affiliate tree, all the way down into the ECHL. So there's things like that, but it's so easy to sit and watch TV and tell them what they should do. I mean, I do the same thing when I watch the NFL, and I've never even thrown a football. So it's,
everybody's a couch chair quarterback and,
exactly.
coach. And,
so I love the analysts on
it's the
ESPN.
best type of quarterback.
Yeah.
Or I could sit there and say, oh, they need to do this. I'm like, dude, you haven't played in like 30 years. It's not even the same sport.
Like Stephen A. Smith, like, okay,
or him.
Really
he probably never even played it. Yeah. It's crazy. But I mean, how hard is that? Because I mean, you're newly retired. I mean, is that, can I say retired, or are you just taking a break?
No, definitely retired.
Okay, so you're fully retired.
Definitively.
You're living our life, the basic man's job. So you're getting a view on our side now. I mean, how hard is that? Because like I said, I played in high school, which a million years ago, but I can watch NHL, who I have no business, even be in the same building with those guys skill wise, but I'll watch it and it's hard for me because I'm like, man, I want to play. Or, I kind of get that hockey player sense coming back into me and thinking, okay, I would do this if I was on the ice and I would pass here and I would, you kind of strategize watching it. How hard is that? I mean, or do you feel that, or do you kind of start thinking, I'm missing the game, I got to get back out there? Or is it kind of like, I made peace with it and it's time to move to the next step?
Yeah, I've been kind of trying to avoid the game a little bit here so I can get set with my real career, so to speak. But no, when I watch, I think for a lot of guys that played, at least in the ECHL and the AHL, the hard part is watching some of the players because that, you're probably at the same level as them, and I'm not just speaking about myself. I'm saying I played with tons of players in the ECHL that were better than some of the guys that I know in the NHL. So sometimes there's the odd guy that you look at and you're just kind of, damn, how did he make it there? It's just a little jealousy like that, which, that's life, and you just got to deal with it. And I was happy with my career, but of course I would have loved to have an opportunity to play in that league. That was my dream. So you're a little jealous when you watch, and it's kind of funny that way. I'll tell my wife, oh, I'm better than that guy, and she'll just shake her head, kind of laugh at me.
Well, you're sitting on the couch.
Yeah, exactly. You're sitting on the couch here now eating Doritos, so you're probably,
Well, and you have friends in the NHL too, so that's got to be tough, knowing people that are doing that, and you're thinking, man, I played with this guy. That's got to be hard. And that's just how sports go too, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm the only one who would say that the NHL, the first two lines are unbelievable players, unbelievable talents, and then the third and fourth lines are pretty much interchangeable with some of the players in the AHL, or with a lot of the players in the AHL. So, those roles, the third and the fourth line, which are obviously very specific roles, because you probably can't put your best goal scorer in the NHL and the AHL on a fourth line in the AHL or NHL. Sorry, can't get the words right. But so it's just it's hard to say. But some of these guys that are ripping up the AHL definitely deserve a better chance than going up and playing fourth line and then getting sent down 2 games later because they couldn't hack it as a checking liner or whatever you call them these days. So
yeah, I can't tell you how many times where a Blues player, like a rookie or kind of a younger player, would be sent down, and then not more than maybe a week or 2 later they'd be sent back up. And it's not like they're
Jordan Binnington,
right next, down the street. Like they got to travel a couple 100 miles, and pretty much they don't know how much longer they're going to be down there, so they move all their stuff down there. Then they have to move it on back. And Binnington was sent down, then called up immediately, like within a week or 2, maybe a couple weeks then. So
and Binnington's a great example. I mean, he paid his dues in the AHL. I don't know how many years he played there, but I think he was even in the ECHL at some point. So it's just, especially with goalies, I think there's obviously with injuries or somebody not performing, they can move up and down, of course, very, very quickly. So they're definitely in a tough and challenging role in terms of the mental part of the game.
I feel like you got to be learn to live light and be able to I guess go on the fly when you're kind of going in between the pros and the minor leagues.
You just know it's going to change at any time and just accept it and
Exactly.
Like I said before, just know why you're doing it and keep playing.
Yeah.
I guess as we kind of wrap up, what would you give to players who are currently playing in the minors if you were asked advice? I mean, what would you tell them? What should they do? I guess something you may not have known when you were back in the minors, but what should they make sure they're doing to keep making that jump and to keep growing and pushing on with their dream?
Yeah, two things. In terms of how they play, I think the one thing that I really regret is that I didn't play my game when I got called up. So I'd be one of the better, statistically, I'd be one of the better scorers in the ECHL, and I'd get called up and I'd be all excited. And then I'd get there and they'd tell me that, you're going to be on the fourth line. We know you can score, but we want you to keep it really, really simple, get the puck deep, play good defense, blah, blah, blah. So I would always listen to this and I would do my best to fill that role, which wasn't necessarily my best, using my best abilities. And then I'd get sent down, a few weeks later and wonder why. So I think the one thing that I would have done different is to go up and at least once or twice try to play my game and show them what I'm good at, which skating, scoring, or whatever. And maybe not just try to fill a role to stay there, because you have a short career and you want to showcase what you got. And I think that's one of the things that I would have done different. I would have loved to just kind of play my game and see where it took me. And then the second thing, which I'm very happy about now when I'm retired, is, in the summers, for the people that, especially the ones that went to college, or I guess even more important for the ones that didn't, to try to do some type of work, like get an internship in during the summer, or do something that you can put on a resume. Because now when I retired, a couple months ago, 3-4 months ago, it just made it so much easier because I was a lot more marketable to employers, and I was able to get some job offers right away because, not only because I play pro hockey, which they for some reason think is really cool, but because I did something while doing it. Like I was doing internships in marketing, sales, finance, and it just, from their perspective, I think they really liked seeing that I had the drive to not only try to make it in hockey, but also take care of my resume and all that.
Yeah.
So
you got to be well-rounded in any part of your life, but especially when your career could literally be over within a week or two.
Exactly.
I think you did the right thing. So what is that next step for you, Gregor? Now that you're retired, you've had your kind of moments in the sun. What's those next steps for you?
Yeah, so we finally, my wife got to pick where we lived. She's been chasing me around all these years in Sweden, Germany, and all over the U.S. So we're living in Scottsdale, Arizona, and nice. I just started work. Yeah, it's awesome.
I lived in Glendale, so you picked better. Yeah.
yeah. I was actually in Glendale today, and it was okay, but
it's getting better. Really, but Scottsdale definitely you picked right.
Yeah, but no, I just started working for a company called Stryker in medical device sales, and it's been great. It's a team atmosphere. You work in teams, so you're using a lot of the stuff that you were taught in hockey and throughout playing on teams growing up. So for me, it's just all about trying to establish myself right now in my longer career, my second career, and it's going well so far. And it's like I said, I turn a hockey game on. Of course, I get to itch a little bit, or more than anything, a little bit of regret on things I could have done better and all that. But that's life, and I'm really excited about this. This is it's been great. So.
Well, good.
I think I'm very fortunate that I'm given this opportunity, and of course, I was able to retire on my own terms. I wasn't injured or anything, so that was another thing.
Very rare feat, especially with athletes nowadays.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Gregor, it's been a joy having you on. Wish you the best of luck going forward here. Always welcome back on the Weekendology Podcast. Where if you want to plug your socials, where can they find you if they want to follow you?
Oh, social media?
Yeah.
No, I'm completely off it now.
Completely off. All right.
Yeah, that's another thing I'm kind of happy about, because there was a lot of stress with social media.
Sure.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. This is great. This is fun. I'll be happy to join in on another time. Maybe I'll have some more. Can think of some better minor league stories, but
yeah, appreciate it.
We'll do a business one now to honor your second life out there.
Yeah. I don't know. I got to learn some stuff first. That's right. In a few months, maybe.
Well, thanks, Gregor. Appreciate it, giving some insights on the struggles of minor league sports players. You can check the Weekendology podcast out on Twitter at Weekendology Pod. We're on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. Just search Weekendology Podcast. You can check me out at my Twitter handle below. It's William Deichley. Aaron, where can they find you at?
You can find me at Aaron Levi Berg on Twitter.
All right, there you go. Well, thanks so much, guys. Appreciate everybody listening. We'll be back again next week for another episode.